Hey, welcome back to the garage. Gotta get some heat going in here, and then we're going to, on the 65 Rambler, we're going to update the ignition. Right now it has points, and can't seem to stop or get it adjusted just right. And I've tried and tried and tried, but then I discovered it's been around for a long time. Apparently it's a Pertronics system that I can put in there that will eliminate the points in the condenser. So let me get some heat going up in here in the garage, get it nice and warm, and then I'll show you what we're getting ready to do. All right, I'm gonna move the camera around here for a little bit. I got the shop warmed up a little bit, not a ton. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be swapping out the old point style ignition in the 65 Marlin. We got to get things wrapped up under the hood there so we can close that hood and be done under there. And then we'll be able to jump into the interior. And then finally, the last thing we need to do on this car is go through the braking system to make sure everything's up to snuff. One of the interesting things about this car is, even for a 1965, let's see if I can show you this, this car came from the factory with disc brakes. So we're gonna clean those up a bit and make sure everything is okay with those. The car was sitting for a long time, so I suspect we may be rebuilding a couple of calipers here. But we're going to go ahead and take the old style points ignition out of here. We're also going to be replacing the coil, but before we take any of this apart, we need to verify a couple of things. There were some ignitions that came with a ballast resistor, and according to the Pertronics kit, and watching Thunderhead 289's video there, thanks Uncle Lou, we need 12 volt keyed power at the coil positive. So we're going to check that to see what we currently have, because we may need to tap into our new fuse panel and send 12 volt keyed power to that coil. So let's go back over here on the bench. Let's take a look at what we're going to be installing today. All right, so with the Pertronics kit, it's called the igniter. Now, the dog was really excited that we got a delivery, so that's the box. That's what's left of the box. I don't know. There are some instructions in here that weren't eaten, and I also did get the appropriate flamethrower coil. This is the one that is designed to go with this kit here. This kit is the 1162A, and the part number for the flamethrower coil is number 40511. According to Pertronics, these things work nicely together. What's great about the Pertronics kit here is it's going to be supposedly pretty straightforward. We're going to take the distributor cap off the other one. We're going to take the old points and the condenser right out of there. And then this plate is going to bolt right down in here, and you can see that it even has the provision for the vacuum advance. And then on top of that, on the rotor, on the top side there, this unit will sit there as opposed to the points. And then of course, on the top of the distributor shaft itself, there is a slip collar here that goes over, and then you just adjust your gap here between the two items. This was supposed to come with a gapping gauge, but I think that got torn off in the box. But from what I understand, it's about 30 thousandths, so we'll just use a feeler gauge and we'll get that gap appropriate. So let me get set up over there by the distributor, and we'll take some measurements, voltage measurements at the coil, and then we'll pick up from there. All right, I've got the battery temporarily hooked up, and I've got the ignition key turned to the on position, and we're going to check for voltage at the coil. Now, I was also curious about, because I used to just go from the positive side of the coil to the negative side of the coil, and after watching Thunderhead 289's video on this subject, he recommended that you go to a different grounding source. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put this on the positive side of the coil, and then I'm just going to run right to the ground on the battery. And we're going to see if we have 12 volt keyed power at the coil. And it looks like we do. It's a little light. It's 11.8. If I take it at the battery, it's 12. So there is a bit of a drop there. I don't know what that resistance is, but we can run directly to our new fuse panel and get a clean 12 volt key power source that way. I think I'm going to do that. It's not that much of a voltage drop. It's not like it's cutting it in half. It's not like there's a resistor that's only allowing us to have, 6 or 7 volts here at the coil, but I'm updating the electricals in this anyway, so might as well. All right, what I also like to do normally is take a picture of what's under there before I start ripping it apart. Okay, but let's open this up. Let's see what we got going on underneath this cap here. I hope this is going to be a good angle here and I'm not standing in the way of it. But let's go ahead. We've been under here before. When we first got this car, we opened it up and the points were literally just crispy. There was literally nothing left of the points. We weren't getting any spark anywhere. Points were fried. So we did change the points. We did change the capacitor, condenser. And we did get a spark out of it. The battery in the car was kind of shot, so there were a lot of things going against us. But we did get it to fire, and it was a bit of a weak spark. We knew that at some point in time we were going to be updating the coil and what have you, but we needed to get it to run in order to check out a few other items on the car, namely the carburetor. The carburetor was disgusting. We had to send that out, and I actually sent it to a place down in Florida, Guaranteed Carburetors, because this carburetor is not really available anywhere. You can modify some things and use a different one, but this is the original carburetor, and as you know, anytime I can reuse the original, I'm a huge fan of that. Obviously not in a high performance application, like the Monty. That there has nothing to do with original parts. That's speed parts and going fast. But this one, I like to keep as much original as I can. But when we get to this ignition here, it's inconsistent, and literally it's time to modernize it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Let's see what we got going on under this cap. Now you can see under the cap here, and I'll try to zoom you in. Everything is nice and new and shiny. Let's see if we can't zoom in here. Bring you in so you can see all that stuff down there. Everything's new, but we're still having intermittent spark issues, and I don't know if it's the points just not keeping in the appropriate gap. I don't know if the dwell's wrong. So it's time to switch to electronic ignition. All right, so let's move this cap out of the way. Oh, one of the other things we discovered when we first get our vehicle in here, we always take a peek at it, pull the plugs, try to read the plugs, see what's going on with it. We don't just try to get it to run. We want to check to make sure that it has oil in it. We want to check some other systems, make sure the motor's freed up. Try to avoid causing bigger problems. But after we went through all that stuff, we were pulling plugs out, and we noticed that the firing order was wrong. So whoever had this car previously, I don't know, obviously they didn't do it on purpose, but I wonder how long they were scratching their head trying to figure out why this car wouldn't run right. And because it was off, and it wasn't just one off, it was way off. So, all right, looking under here now, this seems pretty straightforward. It looks like I'm just going to be removing this plate here. I do want to see how this vacuum advance connects, because we have to mimic that on this distributor plate. All right, so let's move this cap out of the way. Oh, one of the other things we discovered when we first get our vehicle in here, we always take a peek at it, pull the plugs, try to read the plugs, you know, see what's going on with it. We don't just try to get it to run. We want to check to make sure that it has oil in it. We want to check some other systems, make sure the motor's freed up. You know, try to avoid causing bigger problems. But after we went through all that stuff, you know, we were pulling plugs out, and we noticed that the firing order was wrong. So whoever had this car previously, I don't know, you know, obviously they didn't do it on purpose, but I wonder how long they were scratching their head trying to figure out why this car wouldn't run right. And because it was off, and it wasn't just one off, it was way off. So, all right, looking under here now, this seems pretty straightforward. It looks like I'm just going to be removing this plate here. I do want to see how this vacuum advance connects, because we have to mimic that on this distributor plate. So let's be cautious when we take this apart here. Let's make sure we don't have the battery hooked up. Let's make sure we don't have any of that stuff to cause a problem for us and zap us. All right. So let's go ahead and start to remove what's in here. I'm just going to go in reverse of what I did previously, which was put in new points, and we'll pull the rotor off. We'll save that because you have to reuse that. Pertronics kit didn't come with one. So, and then I put the condenser in. So let's go ahead and let's take that one out. Let's be careful not to drop this tiny screw down underneath the base plate of the distributor. All right, there's that tiny screw. Here is the condenser and the mount that it's on. And then that also comes over to here on this side where that grounding strap is. We can undo that bolt. And it's funny having all this room under a hood, but you're still dealing with tiny little screw heads. And what I've noticed too is a lot of this stuff it's all flathead. All right, so we have this. Let's take this mount off. Get rid of that. And we can go ahead and pull the points out now. Let's go ahead. Let's also not drop this tiny screw down inside. Let's go ahead and grab that and pull that one out. All right. So now what we have is we have the points, we have the condenser, and it goes over to a little bit of a rubber grommet here. Goes through and then up to the coil. All right, so when we put the Pertronics unit in there, we're also going to have one of the wires from the Pertronics kit go up and go to the negative side of the coil as well as the positive side of the coil. And of course we'll run a new keyed power feed to the positive side of the coil as well. All right, let's continue on here. It looks like I want to go get that other plate just to line it up first before we get too deep into this, because if this is not the correct one, we need to stop right now. All right, so it looks like there's that capping gauge too. It looks like right where that vacuum advance is would hook up underneath here, and this goes through that, and that's what will pull that. So we can just pull, it looks like, this top plate and lift everything right out. That'll also give us a good view of the advance weights and things that are on, all the good stuff that's underneath there. That probably hasn't seen daylight in a very long time. But let's save these screws. We have to reuse these screws to put the plate down. And they're small. There's one. Oh, this one's really good. This one's in there really well. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Last thing I want to do is strip out a screw right here. I'm not sure I could find this distributor. Maybe I could, but I don't want to have plate straight up and off. And it should come straight out of the vacuum advance as well, and it does. All right, and here is what we have. All right, now before I go too far, I'm going to check the weights in here, make sure everything's groovy and not all gummed up. And it looks like everything moves freely, which is kind of shocking. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to replace that now with this plate. So they look very similar. I mean, it's just a matter of where the Pertronics unit mounts. But this is also going to go straight through. I have to line that up with the vacuum advance. So let's go ahead and make sure that we don't miss that, because it's not like a spring or something you can just hook back on. You would have to take this whole base plate out again to line that up. Okay, that is lined up, and I'm gonna, this is almost too easy. I'm gonna go ahead and take these screws and put them back in where they came out of. All right, there's one. You know, a lot of times you know, it might seem intimidating to mess with ignition systems and things like that, but you know, if you do a little research and figure out how the system operates, you know, where it's getting its power from, how it's distributing its power, and what's necessary grounds, you can do this. This shouldn't be too intimidating. Anybody can tackle this. That one's tight. Hope you can see this. You're not just seeing my knuckles in the way. All right. That plate is replaced. I still have this hooked up over here, so I know where all the stuff goes. But there's kind of a little grommet here, and I'm pretty sure the new kit, I hope the new kit comes with one. Let's go get that and see what it's got on it. Looks like it does. We may have to modify the length of the wires. I'm glad that when the dog was very excited about the package today, that didn't chew this thing up, right? This is like the meat and potatoes of this whole system. All right, so now this needs to go on here, like so. And then we would put this ring on, which has magnets in it. And I don't understand exactly, it's called the Hall effect. So it's going to read this as it spins around, basically. So let's go ahead and start the screws for this. Now also you're going to see here is this, so I'm wondering, does this go on this side? That seems more appropriate considering where the grommet is, but it doesn't fit on that side. So that's a no. Looks like you can slide this. Okay, you can slide the grommet. All right, so I'm going to put this on here. It only fits one way. I tried to put it on the other side. It won't work. It hits the distributor shaft. All right, so let's start these. It's a stud there, so they give you a couple nuts to put on here. Let's go ahead, we'll open this up. And I actually did find the little gapping gauge, so we won't have to use the 30 thousandths feeler gauge to get the appropriate gap between the two. All right, we've got two of those nuts here. Have the little sort of a star washer that's already connected to it. Again, let's see if we can get this on without dropping it. That would be great. All right, there's one. And while that one's out, I'm going to go figure out what size this is. See if we can get a nut driver on here. Yeah. I'll just take, you know, an extension and just do this by hand, because we do have to set the gap on this, and we don't need to reef on it right yet. Let's just get it on here to make sure it's not going to fall off. All right, and then apparently this thing goes on. Of course, the dog ate the directions, so I'm going to figure out how this is going to go on and if the rotor is going to fit over this. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see if we can get this to go on. So that goes, supposedly it goes on and then you push it down. This doesn't feel like it wants to push down though. Like at all. It's gonna have to, now it's under the car. That's great. All right, hold on a minute. All right, let's try this again. This should go down, this should go over here, and this should drop down, but it doesn't look like there's enough room. Oh, there it is. I stand corrected. Wow. And that looks like it's almost pre-gapped. It looks perfect. Let me take this little feeler gauge here. They give you this plastic one. I've seen other guys using these, and they send you a clear one, and sometimes you don't even realize it's in the bag. This one here is black, so you have to set the gap between this unit and, well, geez, it looks like it's right there. There doesn't seem to be much adjustment on this either, so how can that be? Yeah, I mean, this thing barely fits in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in there, hold it in between, and then I'll tighten this down. And then once it's tightened down, we'll pull that gauge out. And that should be right where it's supposed to be. All right, there's one. There's two, and now I should probably tighten this down all the way now. All right, so finally tracked down the little ratchet. I've got everything on there now. I think I am running into a tiny issue. I don't know if this is going to be, I don't know. It doesn't feel like the rotor seats far enough down. You know, like, I think normally it goes way down, and in this instance it's kind of going on like 1/4 inch and that's it. I don't know. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that and see if it interferes with the cap. But I'm gonna walk this wire around, and it has that grommet, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put that grommet down through there. That will allow us to have enough room to put the cap on and securely have the cap come all the way down. Alright, so let's go ahead and make sure that these wires are not going to interfere with anything. We'll push this down. There was something in the what directions were left that mentioned maybe needing to file a notch in the distributor cap for the wires to pass underneath. So if you do notice that your distributor cap is not sitting all the way flat down, just know that you can do that and that it's okay. It's not going to interfere with anything. You can file the bottom of that cap. And what I mean by that is right on the edge of the cap, you may have to file it. Okay, it depends on the manufacturer of the distributor cap. I've actually seen the first one that was on this car had a bigger gap already on it, and then we changed it to this distributor cap. So I guess it's just depends on the manufacturer if that gap is already there or not. All right, so this is here. I've got this looped out, so it's not going to interfere with anything that's spinning around, which would not be good. I suppose I could go this way. I kind of want to go this way. I want to stay away from the other side of that rotor. There's nothing over here on this side that's spinning around, so I'm going to go over on this side. Yeah, I think I like that better. All right, now we're going to see if the cap actually fits on here. Let's go see, we'll push it down. Doesn't look like there's anything interfering with it. It sits nice. And that pushes down in the back there, and that's not really interfering with anything. So we're going to go with that. And we have our vacuum advanced hook up. That's good. Let's go ahead and let's screw this down. So then the only thing we'll have left to do now is wire this to the coil. And then I will run a new 12-volt keyed power source from our new electrical panel that we put in. We actually just made one. We were a little concerned about the original in the car. It kind of looks like a printed circuit board, and we didn't want to put any extra tacks on that thing. So I'll show you what I ended up doing to get a new fuse block in the car. We simply tapped keyed power to a relay, and then the relay allows full power from the battery to power the actual new fuse block. So the old fuse panel is doing nothing but acting like a low voltage trigger, just like a relay is supposed to. All right, so these are on. All right, that was really almost too easy. It was so easy it's concerning. Is it supposed to be that easy? All right, so next up we have two wires coming out of the Pertronics unit right here. We got a positive and a negative, and we need to wire these to the coil. These wires are really high quality too. It's more of a rubberized coating on here, good insulator, as opposed to, you know, plasticky, you know, wire you typically see for lead wire. All right, I'm going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and see what size this is, and we'll pull that off. We do need to put a lead on the end of this here, and I despise crimp connectors, so I think I'm going to end up soldering these with appropriate connectors on the end. All right, so as I mentioned before, I said that I put a new fuse block in this, and I'm going to take you around and show you here. All right, so to prep this coil, it comes with all these extra things on it here, which I don't need because I'll be using eyelets. I don't like the slip-on jobbies there. They wiggle off. So this one here, according to the directions, this one here, this is a 3 ohm coil, and it tells you that for 4 and 6 cylinder racing applications that this coil is not recommended. For 4 and 6 cylinder normal applications, we're going to remove the resistor. Now what's interesting is the car doesn't have a resistor that I can find anywhere in the ignition line. Alright, so what I did was, off the battery, I ran to a circuit breaker. Okay, because it can also be anti-theft here. So I ran that to the circuit breaker, and then inside the vehicle, let's go inside here and take a peek. There's no seats in here right now because I'm doing the floors and the carpet, so we might be able to see everything we want to see here. I ran from the battery to a high-powered relay right in the back, and then from the high-powered relay I ran to the new fuse block. Okay, so anything that I tap into this circuit here is going to be keyed power, and I got this on, you know, Amazon here, and it actually has LEDs, so if there was a fuse that was blown, you could see the LED instead of, you know, crawling under here with a test light. Now once I get everything that I know I need to come to this panel, I'm going to go ahead and then securely mount this panel, tuck everything up underneath. But, you know, this was like 10 bucks. The original fuse block in this, and I'll put a picture in so you can see it, it's fragile. So I did not want to ruin that, because I don't know if I could get another one.